I pulled two cards mainly for myself last night because I was going through a situation, and I feel like many of us are going through that. Many of you here, it doesn't matter if you're watching it right when I post it or later, but I got one was the Justice card, a big card, and then the other one was a Star. I wanted more confirmation and clarification on the Justice, so I got the Star. Sorry, in the light there. For Justice, in this card especially, there was a situation where, certain things were brought to light, and my acceptance was really, or my issues, challenges with acceptance, and my attachment to outcomes was really brought to light in the forefront after I raged. And I want to also acknowledge that if you are feeling frustrated, go ahead and purge it. Let that anger come out. I'm not saying yell at somebody or, get violent or anything. But, there's a lot of stress, for a good reason, on positivity because, I learned that humans are kind of, we have a negative bias, which means we float towards negativity or lower vibrations. It's easier for us to do that. I think it's part of the ego survival issues, as in 9 people could tell you great things, positive things about an idea you have, and that one person could say, are you crazy? What is your problem? You don't want to do that. And we tend to float to that one person. That one person's voice gets really stuck in our head. And that's partly, it's a negative bias, but that's partly the ego saying, survive, survive. This could be a life-threatening situation. You don't want failure. And that's understandable. So that's an issue where, instance where positivity and our recognition for maybe being stuck in lower vibrations, negativity, us looking more towards positive vibrations, us thinking more positively, lifting our vibrations, having self-care, self-love, uplifting thoughts and self-talk to ourselves is much needed. But when we're going through certain emotions because of situations, I just want to stress too that whatever you're feeling, those vibrations, that energy, you need to let it purge. You need to let it come out. And I know I've done it myself. We hear about positive talk, and then sometimes we feel so stressed and we force positivity. But it's also important to let some of those lower vibrations of anger, frustration, you just wanting to shout, to come out. And let it rise out of you. Let it come out through physical means, as in exercise, movement, or crying, or just shouting. Going to your sacred space or going to a place like a hike, or just maybe shouting, because it needs to come out. Because ultimately, I heard somebody say that anger is actually your ally. Actually, it was a reader at Mystic Moon Oracle. She said that actually through one of her oracle cards, which was, I think, great, because I know here we tend to shy away and turn away from anger a lot, and that's understandable. But we also need to really recognize that anger, that frustration, because it's ultimately teaching us something. Because that anger is bringing an emotion, a collective thought form that has been projected on us or brought from other lives or just from past experiences. It's a vessel carrying that, and we need to extract that through whatever process you need to bring it to your consciousness, bring it to awareness, and realize, why am I getting angry? And I had to do that. I was getting really frustrated. And I had to really realize, why am I getting angry at this? And it was a justified situation. The justice, I wanted a certain outcome. I didn't get the outcome, and I was frustrated with that. I felt like a fool, not in a fool in an ignorant, blissful way, but really silly, as in I should have known better. But ultimately, it taught me about acceptance and accepting the situation for what it is. And through my anger, and I had a big outburst in the car by myself. But I wanted to just let myself experience that anger, because I myself had been maybe guilty or unknowingly maybe stuffing some of the anger down and really kind of just blowing past it, not letting myself just express that or feel that. Again, I was in isolation, solitude, driving, talking. I was actually talking to myself, but you know, I was asking myself certain questions. I was letting myself experience the frustration of like, you know, how could I do that? How could I be so silly? But ultimately, that process, and I let it purge through. I didn't keep going on and on with it. But I actually, when I got home, I started. You know, I went to my readings, and I also went to, you know, some self-analysis and questioning of like, what is this all about? Why am I experiencing this? I even said, what did I do to deserve this? But ultimately, what came up was the acceptance. You know, the justice card, as in, not that the other person is going to get what they deserve or anything like this, but there's a measuring out happening here. There's a balance that needs to come in. You know, and I always like to take it further. Sorry about that, the light. See the scales and the sword. You know, the sword is also it's action, it's communication. But, you know, ultimately, you know, the sword, especially in tarot, is in this deck too, is about faith. It's about maybe even the crucifixion, sacrifice, sacrificing yourself to yourself in order for there to be a rebirth, and awareness, an aha moment, and enlightenment. You know, things will work itself out. So what's happening with you is also happening with the other person. You know, and I want to also talk about this mirroring aspect in this kind of soul flame, twin flame partnership, sacred partner, or what have you. Is this mirroring that people are talking about, which is like, oh, why do I need a mirror? I can see myself in the mirror. I know who I am. But this mirroring is actually happening on a higher consciousness, and it's actually showing you aspects of yourself that have been ignored. So it's not about seeing like you, it's about seeing those deeper aspects. So it's actually a soul mirror that's being brought to light. Not by you and this other person, but by your higher self and their higher selves. And yes, you may be experiencing something more directly because you are, let's say here, you're more aware of certain aspects. But that other person, you are actually bringing certain things up for them as well, by maybe you contacting them, because maybe they're the runner. And by you constantly contacting them, or, you know, being brave enough to communicate and say what you feel, is actually bringing a mirror up to them, a soul mirror up to them. And, you know, ultimately, you know, whatever readings you get, there is a certain aspect of free will. So for a lot of you, if it's taken longer, a lot longer, if you've been on this separation journey, or you've been on this kind of up and down, back and forth, dip in, dip out kind of relationship, and, you know, you see certain readings where it almost sounds like everything's going to happen immediately, you know, the reason why it takes longer is because certain aspects, you know, it's very hard to convince us after, you know, years of certain emotions and thoughts, and us hiding things from ourselves, to, you know, for you know, your spiritual aspects, higher consciousness, to kind of, you know, you to acknowledge certain fear factors. Us here, I'd like to believe you're working on that, but your counterpart, they're on their own journey, and, you know, it's just, honestly, it just takes time. It takes time, and there's healing that's happening between you and the other person. Especially, you know, let's just keep it real and just within yourselves. Because ultimately, I've learned, for me, it's always just about ourselves. And when we start wanting to know, I've learned from personal experience, know more about what our counterpart is doing, our, you know, masculine factors, or, you know, divine feminine factors, whatever the other person, your significant other, or potential soul partner is, whatever energies they're more in tune with. When we keep wanting to know what they're experiencing, what they're thinking, it's taking the focus off of us. And honestly, your higher self, your ancestor, your spiritual team, they can accept that, but they know it's not for your best interest, because they can see you're drifting off more away from yourselves and onto someone else. And, you know, ultimately that causes issues, because what good is it if you're so enamored with somebody else, and you finally come into union, and you haven't really done the healing for yourself because you've been worried about that other person. So with this justice, with this let's bring everything out in the open, and let's weigh out what the real issues are between you and this other person, but more importantly within yourselves. Let's see what's necessary and what's not, what's good and what's not. You know, there's also a karmic aspect here of some karmic issues, which for me means a certain aspect of healing. Because if we're talking about cause and effect, if certain aspects that you have that need to be brought to light, as in they're kind of coming around to you or coming up, it ultimately causes healing. And it weighs out things, it balances out things. And it's not to say that you did something wrong or anything, but if we're talking about being on this journey, we're ultimately talking about healing and becoming our true selves, our going back to wholeness. And so we are truly reaching a certain level of perfection or perfection. Each and every one of us has our souls, each and every soul here has their own meaning of perfection, their own journey to perfection. And with this star card, this rising out of the darkness, the clouds, into the light, the shine, this peacock, which is wisdom. I've been getting a lot of wisdom lately. This is all bringing up wisdom. Okay, this is all having us rise to light, shining our light. And when we experience these journeys where we're in it and we're being challenged and we feel like we're being fooled, and why did I follow that advice? How could I trust my inner self if it's just going to lead to this? You know, these things are happening on a higher level. It has a bigger picture in mind. That's why they're considered the mysteries, because they act in mysterious ways, because they're not just thinking about now, they're thinking about now. They know what's happened in the past, and they know what can happen for you in the future. And even in all the spaces in between and beyond that. And so, you know, we're a little confused when we're experiencing these challenges, but that trust does need to come in. And, you know, in hindsight, I did follow the right advice. It got me frustrated because of what happened, but after I settled down, allowed that frustration to express itself in solitude, without throwing it on to someone else, and it subsided. You know, I started to get a certain amount of clarity, and more clarity started to come, and then the next morning and day, you know, through my sleep state, more information was coming through, and upon awakening, I started to realize that this was something that was being brought to light within myself. And ultimately, you know, some of the attachments I was having, maybe there's still more attachments I have, but this certain aspect of acceptance was definitely a learning lesson. And it ultimately took an edge off of that energy of attachment I have to the certain outcomes, to the specific other, and just saying, you know, whatever happens, man, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm happy I still communicated. I'm happy I still reached out, and that's all I can do. And that's all I want to do, because anything more is taking energy and focus off myself and bringing it on to someone else, somebody else that's significant other. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's your sacred soul partner, if it's just a partner or family member, you don't want to constantly be focused on them. It's not healthy. You want to have balance. You ultimately also want to focus on yourself and making yourself better. So through this balancing act and clearing out and a karmic issue, if you will, of just literally just cause and effect of bringing things to light, weighing things out, what's important, what's not important. That healing and mercy aspect, and also that lawful aspect of what's the overall good for you, what's best for you. And then through that journey, the realization and the kind of ascension process of that star, that coming to a certain aspect of enlightenment or illumination, i.e. knowledge, it was a healing process for me. You know, there's a sense, you know, I keep saying there's an edge that keeps taking off, that is taken off. And what I mean now, the word came to me was a sense of peace. As in, a lot of the energy and a lot of the frustration that I had was, I guess in a sense, trying to control the situation. Expecting a certain outcome. You know, and that goes into the contradiction of, well, you know, we're always envisioning certain things, but, you know, ultimately, you know, and we're wanting to manifest things, but ultimately, you know, I'm starting to sense that, you know, when you look at a higher person, let's say, you look at those saints who are here, it doesn't matter what faith you're in. You know, there's a great saint in India who describes a saint as someone who's reached shanti, who's reached peace within themselves. And if you look at any of the true saints, they have it in that expression that they have, that look. As in, whatever happens, I'm okay. I envisioned it. I thought about it. I set out the intention. I communicate it. And that's all I can do. And whatever happens after that, it's fine with me, because I have peace within myself. I have calmness within myself. I have still the love for myself, for my fellow man and women, and nothing's going to change that, because they've realized what this is ultimately about. And then that's also through certain levels of their own progress, and definitely they've had their own fair shares of outbursts, frustrations, shouting, errors, certain mistakes or assumed failures that we all are afraid to go through, we've experienced, but all a part of our learning lessons here. They've experienced all that. You don't see it. You don't hear about it a lot, because they've reached that peace, that level of love and bliss where, you know, somebody used the example, I can't remember who it is, but when you climb a mountain, you know, and at the top of the mountain is the grand view of the ocean and the sun. And once you go through all the trials and tribulations of climbing that mountain, you hit that peak. And, you know, as soon as you hit that peak, there's a sunset setting over the ocean. You forget all about, or you don't even want to think about all the trials and tribulations you've experienced. Because the view, the peace, the serenity, the energy of victory that you've achieved supersedes all of that. So when they reach a level of bliss and love, that's why you don't hear about all the challenges they've experienced, because they're above that now. They've reached that state of peace, of perfection. And you can too. That's what we're here for, honestly. You know, we're not experiencing all this for nothing. That's for sure, because these are like tough challenges a lot of you have gone through or are going through. But we have two great cards here. These are two major arcana cards, okay? The number 11, you know, that's a twin flame number, soulmate number. For justice, wow, it's really blown out. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay? And then we have the star card. 17, that's a good number. All right? Your two high energy cards here. So whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing, stay in it, okay? Spirit, your higher selves, your ancestors are not joking around with you, making you go in circles just for the fun of it. They're feeling the frustration you feel. They're feeling the hurt or the tears, but they ultimately know this is something that we need to learn. And if they're not doing that, they're not helping us in the long run, really. So it is a tough job they have to do, because they're there with you experiencing all this, but ultimately you're here too to break those patterns in your family, your lineage. You don't want to spread those to your kids, or you don't want that to continue in your family as well, or for yourselves as well either. So you're doing a great job. Trust yourselves. Trust your IGS, I want to call it, inner guidance systems. Trust it. I've been there. I've doubted myself, especially when there's fear and anxiety that you receive from your family and friends, from the society. But the trust you have for yourself means that you trust your spiritual team to help you. And if you feel like you shouldn't be doing this, then don't do it. Okay? Maybe make the decision when you're more in a peaceful state, a calmer state, then make the decision. And don't meditate, don't do anything when you're in a distressed state, because the ego creeps in, the survival mode, I call it, creeps in, and it gets a lot louder than that true inner wisdom. So take a walk, hit the punching bag, do yoga, watch some funny videos, whatever it is that brings you peace and stabilizes your mind and reduces that mind chatter. And then go into meditation. Or sometimes once you hit that level of peace and calmness, that's when that inner guidance system starts to arise again. You can really hear it now, and the answers and wisdom starts to flow through and come forth. Okay, this video is a lot longer than I wanted to be, but hey, you know, it started to come out. So yeah. All right, stay in it, guys and gals. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. That'd be great. You know, also, I do have a donation link at the bottom. You're not obligated to at all, but any donation, any amount helps. I use it to receive more cards to share with you all, more cloths and decorations to put on camera, to add some versatility and create more energy and fun, and there's a lot of great work out there from other channelers and tarot readers too, and I love to support them. I love for you guys to help me support them as well. All right, have a great day. See you next time. Bye.